Jurors returned a guilty verdict against Megan Boswell. Thanks for joining us. I'm Sarah Diamond.
And I'm Casey Marler. Today's decision by the jury was the culmination of a case nearly 5 years in the making. The trial surrounded the disappearance and death of 15-month-old Evelyn Boswell. She was the subject of an Amber Alert in February of 2020. A few weeks later, she was found dead on a family member's property.
Her mother, Megan Boswell, was the only person facing charges in her death. A jury found her guilty on all 19 counts.
Some of the heavier charges she was found guilty of include first-degree premeditated murder, first-degree murder in the perpetration of aggravated child abuse, and first-degree murder in the perpetration of aggravated child neglect. A jury decided on a sentence of life in prison with the possibility of parole.
I may not agree with your verdict. I respect your verdict. I respect you. The difference between her being released at what I believe would be 69 to 70 years old or never being released.
I'm remiss without talking about the incredible work that was done by law enforcement in this case, and as a community could not be prouder to have those folks who really from the get-go, from the time she was reported missing, who've really been her biggest advocates during these 5 years, to see ultimately what we realized here in the courtroom today, which was justice for Evelyn.
News Channel 11's Ansley Daniel is live in Sullivan County. Ansley, today's verdict captured the attention of people all across our region and beyond.
Yeah, it only took the jurors 4.5 hours to come to the conclusion that Megan Boswell was guilty on all 19 of those charges. Now, there was a heavy focus on the murder charges. However, the evidence for all 19 played a factor in the jury coming to this decision. For more than a week, the jurors sat and listened to testimony, saw hundreds of pieces of evidence, and watched hours of police interview. This was all while they were sequestered from their friends, families, and loved ones. Prosecutors say that this common sense, though, is what led jurors to the verdict.
We're obviously pleased with the decision that the jury made. It's been 5 long years since all of this first started, and it's a lot of hard work by a lot of people. So it was very satisfying to get the jury's verdict.
Now, after the trial, prosecutors say that this case was emotional for everyone involved, but winning it means one thing, and that's justice for Evelyn. But Jeff, there are some folks that say justice was not served today.
Yeah, well, Megan Boswell's attorney sounded like a man who did not think he delivered a weak case for her acquittal when we talked to him outside of the courtroom this afternoon. Gene Scott said several times in the courtroom that it was the prosecution that has the burden of proving something, and in a case that featured what even prosecutors admitted was a lot of circumstantial evidence, Scott said he left closing statements expecting a different verdict on the murder charges than the one that arrived this morning.
I was surprised and I'm disappointed in it. I personally don't agree with the verdict. I respect the jury's prerogative, but I don't feel like the state was able to prove those homicide counts beyond a reasonable doubt. But reasonable people can differ, I guess, and I'll pursue an appeal.
Scott repeated what he'd argued in the courtroom when it came to that doubt, that he believes testimony from 2 different medical examiners simply didn't do enough to shed solid light on how Evelyn Boswell died. Jurors clearly saw that testimony differently from both doctors, and they thought it was sufficient to prove that Megan did kill her daughter, Evelyn.
Again, there were, a lot of back and forth about the medical examiners, about whether or not Megan was the sole actor in all of this. But again, the jury saw through all that and they said, you know what, she's guilty. We find her guilty on this. And we also thought they were going to deliberate a lot longer than what they did. But 4.5 hours after, almost a week and a half in court.
Yeah, I mean, a tremendous amount of evidence, interviews. They had to listen to hours of interviews. So the speed with which that verdict came back was perhaps a little surprising and certainly seemed indicative of them probably having felt like it was pretty clear and convincing evidence that she was guilty on all of those counts.
All right, well, Jeff Keeling and Ansley Daniel out here in Blunteville. We'll go ahead and send things back to you in the studio.
And you can go back and watch recaps of the trial, read more about the case. It's all on our website, WJHL.com.